Today, we're looking at a blue ink by Caran Magnetic Blue. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, there's timestamps down below so that you can skip around to the parts you're most interested in, or if you watch the whole thing, I'd appreciate you. You can follow me on Instagram, and if you're new here and like fountain pen inks as much as I do, I would invite you to subscribe. To make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into this Parker jotter with a medium nib. I wrote with it for a day and used it to take the notes for this video. In order to have some standardization, I always use Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper in the first writing samples, although there is an additional writing sample with different papers later in the video. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, so it came in a vial like this. And to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. Now the extra fine is just a tad lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. There is some shading going on within this writing, 10 seconds to dry. Medium is about the same tone as the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen. We do get little spots, but not a whole lot of shading, 13 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both show us no color variation, even though the medium had little spots and the extra fine did show some. Tomoe River. No bleeding, normal Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 17 seconds to dry. Medium is about the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 23 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we're not getting any. And Rhodia. With no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 13 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine and the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 17 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we're not getting any. I agree with Vita that we learn a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see what looks like a kind of green leaning brown at the bottom that's pushing its way up, and we start to get this purple, and it's a dark purple. But along with that, at the far left side, you see a very distinct blue popping out right there. Now the one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water, and that green leaning brown that was at the bottom, very much in a line on the bottom, not really budging. It does push the purple up as it was the first time, more noticeably just the purple, but that little bit of blue from the first one is very out there as its own color across the top now. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it might be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, there is a little bit, there's some spreading going on. That extra fine goes to about a medium. There's no real blowout though. Everything is really readable, making me feel confident using it in a note-taking situation if I want to go back and highlight. Now, water's lifting all of the blues and purples off, but really leaving that green leaning brown in place on the paper. Pen Flush does everything that water does and nothing more. But to get this out of my pen, all I had to use was water. The 1/3 bleach solution is starting to really break it free from the paper. You're starting to see the white of the paper coming through, but I didn't need to use 1/3 bleach solution. I test ink viscosity or flow by using a tilt test, and I've linked that video and put that in here for you. Now for the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Caran Magnetic Blue has a viscosity of 2.42, making it normal. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. I average those. Now for the inks I've tested, I have found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Caran Magnetic Blue has an average dry time of 16 seconds, making it still normal. Instead of finding inks that look like Caran Magnetic Blue, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I decided to go with a nice orange, and I chose Diamine Pumpkin. The second writing sample is done on yellow Rhodia, Levenger, and white lines paper. Here we're looking at the yellow Rhodia paper. We're not looking at it for performance so much to see if we get any kind of tone variation that goes on with this ink for having a yellow backdrop. And what we really see is we don't. This is a very opaque ink, the dye, so if you were to use it with a yellow paper, it's not going to affect anything in a professional environment. Levenger paper. With no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 7 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 11 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we're not getting any. And white lines paper. Plenty of bleeding, plenty of ghosting as a result, not touching the page underneath, but you can't use the back of the page. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is the same is quite a bit lighter than a stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 6 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade, 9 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both are showing us no color variation, and we're not getting any, and that is all that I have for writing samples. So what do I think of Caran Magnetic Blue? This is a darker blue that occasionally gives peppering of shading. It has an ability to make this dark blue look like it might be a blue-black while still being a dark blue. So what nib and pen give the best writing experience with this ink? While it can look nice and you can get some of that shading with your drier nibs, or drier pens, I found that a very wet pen put down the tone that I would prefer. So a wet medium or a wet broad for me. If you've made it this far and you've enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. And if it's your first time here, I'm going to remind you to subscribe. Thanks for watching.